The muscle group most responsible for holding your cheekbones in place is one you have never associated with your face. And it sits so far below the knee that the connection sounds almost absurd until you trace the anatomy yourself. Your inner thighs, the adductors. 5 muscles layered along the inside of your upper leg, spanning from the pelvis to just above the knee joint. They squeeze your legs together when you walk, stabilize your pelvis when you stand, and through a chain of continuous tissue that runs the full length of your torso, they anchor the structures that hold your midface up from underneath. That last part is the one worth spending the next 45 minutes on. If you have ever looked into cheekbone filler, or had it done, or considered it and hesitated, you already know the pitch. Volume loss, age-related fat pad descent, the midface flattens, and the solution is to inject synthetic material underneath the skin to restore the projection that time withdrew. The logic is clean. The results for most people are visible. Filler works. Here is the part the filler model cannot explain. If the problem were purely volume loss, if the midface simply deflated like a tire losing air, then replacing that volume should produce a permanent fix. 1 round of filler, problem solved, no further visits. The hyaluronic acid sits where it was placed. The projection returns. End of story. Except it is never the end of the story. The average person receiving cheekbone filler returns for a follow-up injection somewhere between 6 and 12 months later. The volume migrated, or the face settled, or the effect simply faded. The filler dissolved, the body absorbed it, and the original flatness returned. The second round lasts about as long as the first. So does the third. The question that changes everything is not about the filler. The question is about what pulled the face down in the first place. If adding volume from outside only lasts a few months, is volume really what the face is missing? Or is the face missing something else? Something that no injection can restore because the deficit does not live in the face at all. The deficit lives in the tension of a chain, and the bottom of that chain is in your inner thigh. Here is the anatomy, and I want to be precise about it because the precision is what makes this more than a theory. Your inner thigh muscles, the adductors, attach at the bottom of your pelvis, along a ridge of bone you can feel if you press firmly between your legs at the crease where your thigh meets your torso. That attachment point is the starting position. From there, continuous sheets of connective tissue, not separate pieces stitched together, but one unbroken fabric of tissue, run upward through the floor of your pelvis. The pelvic floor is the first relay station. The tissue that lines the inside of your pelvis is structurally continuous with the tissue that lines the front of your spine. Follow it up. Vertebra by vertebra, the deep connective tissue runs along the front of your spinal column, through your chest, behind your sternum, up through your throat. The muscles at the front of your neck, the ones you can feel tighten when you swallow, are part of this same continuous sheet. They connect into the base of your skull, and from the base of your skull, fascial tissue runs forward underneath the cheekbone, anchoring into the structures that give your midface its shape. One continuous line. Roughly 4.5 feet of tissue from your inner thigh to the underside of your cheekbone. Not a theoretical connection, a physical one. You could trace it with a scalpel in a dissection lab and never lift the blade. The line does not transmit signals. It transmits tension, mechanical tension. The kind of tension you feel when you pull one end of a bed sheet and the wrinkles on the other end flatten out. Your adductors, when they carry proper tone, pull downward on the pelvis with enough force to keep the entire chain taut. That tautness travels upward. When it reaches the midface, it provides structural support from below, a gentle, constant upward force that holds the cheekbone tissues snug against the bone. Remove that tension, and the chain goes slack. Not dramatically, not all at once. The slackening takes years, and it is so gradual that you never notice the transition. You notice the result. You look in the mirror one morning and the midface looks flat. The cheekbones that used to catch light at a certain angle do not catch it anymore. The under eye area looks heavier. The overall impression is one of deflation, as if someone slowly released air from a structure that used to be firm. Filler addresses that impression by adding material under the skin. It fills the space that opened up when the tissue lost its support. The injection works because it provides volume where tension used to be. The problem is that the tension is still missing. The filler sits in a face that is still mechanically unsupported, and over time, the same forces that created the flatness, gravity, movement, expression, act on the filler and the face settles again. The filler does not fail. The face continues to descend around it because nothing below is holding it up. The adductor press targets the source, not the symptom. When you generate sustained isometric force through your inner thigh muscles, you restore tone to the bottom of that 4.5 foot chain. The tone propagates upward. The pelvic floor tightens. The deep spinal connective tissue tightens. The anterior cervical tissues tighten. And the midface anchoring points receive mechanical support from below. The same support that was present 20 years ago before decades of sitting allowed the chain to go slack. This is not a fast process, and I would be lying if I told you it was dramatic. The changes are measured in millimeters, but millimeters in the midface are the difference between looking rested and looking tired, between cheekbones that project and cheekbones that blend into the surrounding flatness. Millimeters are what filler provides. The adductor press provides them from the opposite direction. Now, the reason I wanted to explain all of this before mentioning anything else is that this single exercise addresses one specific component of facial structure, one line of tension, one chain. The face has multiple chains, multiple layers, and the full picture involves understanding how all of them interact, how the lateral line, the superficial back line, and the deep front line each contribute different vectors of support to different regions. The Connected Face protocol in the description lays out all 12 exercises in sequence, the complete system, with diagrams and a 30-day tracking sheet. But what I want to focus on for the rest of this video is the single chain you can start working on tonight. The reason this particular chain loses tension before others do comes down to one thing: sitting. And sitting is universal enough that the pattern I am about to describe will sound less like a clinical observation and more like a description of your last Tuesday. When you sit in a chair, your inner thighs are in a shortened position. The adductors are not stretched and they are not working. They are resting at a length that over hours and years becomes their default. The muscle fibers remodel to accommodate the shortened position. The fascia surrounding them stiffens to match. The connective tissue that runs from the adductors into the pelvic floor loses its elastic recoil, not because the tissue died or was damaged, but because tissue adapts to the demands placed on it. No demand, no tone. No tone, no tension. No tension, and the chain above goes quiet. The pelvic floor reflects this. The deep spinal fascia reflects this. And 4.5 feet above the original slackening, the midface loses a fraction of a millimeter of support per year. Multiply that by 10 years, and you have a face that looks fundamentally different. Not because of fat loss, not because of skin damage, because a muscle group in the inner thigh stopped maintaining the tension that holds the structure together from below. Here is the observation that made this visible to me. The pattern among people who come in concerned about midface flatness, the ones who have tried fillers, who are considering fillers, or who simply noticed their face changing, is overwhelmingly a pattern of seated professionals. People who sit 8 or more hours per day. People whose adductors have not been loaded with genuine force in years. The correlation is too consistent to ignore. The people with the most midface descent are, with rare exceptions, the people with the least lower body tension. And the reverse holds. People who maintain strong adductor function, dancers, equestrians, martial artists who train groundwork, anyone whose daily life demands sustained inner thigh engagement, show measurably different midface architecture into their 60s and 70s. The cheekbones project, the under eye area stays firm, the midface retains the contour that most people associate with youth, but that is more accurately associated with mechanical integrity. I am not saying these people look young. I am saying their faces look structurally supported. There is a difference, and it matters, because the goal here is not to reverse aging. The goal is to restore a mechanical function that's sitting interrupted. Think about rehearsal. A stage actor who rehearses a scene daily does not become someone else during the performance. The performance is the rehearsal made visible. The hours of repetition do not create a mask the actor puts on. They build a pattern so deeply embedded that the performance and the person become indistinguishable. The actor who stops rehearsing does not lose the character overnight. The lines are still in memory. The blocking is still familiar, but the fluency fades. The micro-timing that made the performance feel alive goes dull. Week by week, the role dissolves, not through forgetting, but through the slow withdrawal of practiced tension. Your fascial chain operates on the same principle. The tension that supports your midface is not a fixed structure. It is a rehearsed state. Your adductors rehearse it every time they engage with force. When the rehearsal stops, when you sit for a decade without asking those muscles to do real work, the performance degrades. The midface does not collapse. It loses the practiced tension that made it project. And projection fades into flatness with the same quiet inevitability as an unrehearsed monologue fading from memory. The adductor press is the rehearsal. 60 seconds of sustained isometric contraction. Not a workout, not a set of reps. A single sustained hold that tells the tissue at the bottom of the chain, maintain tone, maintain tension, keep the line taut. And here is where the analogy folds in on itself. Because understanding this process is itself a form of rehearsal. The act of recognizing that your inner thigh connects to your cheekbone changes how you sit, how you stand, how you walk. You cannot unknow the connection. Once you understand that your adductors are the anchor point for your midface, every moment of sitting becomes a moment of awareness. That awareness is tension. That tension is structural. Understanding the rehearsal becomes part of the rehearsal itself. Fire operates on a related principle. A fuel line does not burn at the source and transmit flame to the destination. The fuel line transmits the condition for burning, the volatile medium, the potential energy, and the combustion happens wherever the conditions are met. Your fascial chain does not transmit a force from your thigh to your face the way a cable pulls a weight. It transmits a state, tension, along a medium, and the structural effect manifests wherever that medium interfaces with bone and skin. The adductor press does not push your cheekbone up. It heats the fuel line. It restores the volatile potential that allows the chain to maintain its shape against gravity. When the fuel line cools, when the adductors lose tone and the chain relaxes, no amount of local intervention at the destination solves the problem. Injecting filler into a face supported by a cold chain is like lighting a match at the end of an empty fuel line. The warmth is real, but temporary, because there is nothing feeding it from below. The press restores the feed. The fire maintains itself. And this recursive quality, fire sustaining fire, rehearsal sustaining rehearsal, tension sustaining tension, is not a poetic abstraction. It is the literal mechanics of how fascial tissue works. Tissue under sustained tension remodels to maintain that tension. The collagen fibers align along the axis of force. The fibroblasts, the cells that produce connective tissue, respond to mechanical load by laying down more collagen in the direction of the load. Tension creates the conditions for more tension. Slack creates the conditions for more slack. The system reinforces whichever state it occupies. This is why the decline is so gradual and the recovery is possible. If the system were fixed, If fascial tone were set at birth and only degraded with age, then no intervention short of surgery would matter. The fact that the tissue remodels in response to mechanical demand means that restoring demand restores structure. Not instantly, not completely, but measurably, and with consistency, significantly. The dread in this, the part that sits uncomfortably once you see it, is the timeline. The slackening has been accumulating for as long as you have been sitting. If you are 50 and you have spent 30 years in desk chairs, the fascial remodeling along your deep front line reflects 30 years of reduced tension. The tissue shortened, the collagen density decreased, the elastic fibers lost their recoil. 30 years of adaptation towards slack. The press does not reverse 30 years. It starts the process of remodeling in the other direction. The first week of consistent pressing will not produce visible changes. The tissue needs time to respond. Fibroblasts need sustained mechanical signal before they alter collagen production. The science on connected tissue remodeling suggests a minimum of 6 to 8 weeks of consistent loading before structural changes become measurable. 14 days is enough to notice a difference in how the inner thighs feel, firmer, more present, more engaged during walking. 6 to 8 weeks is when the mirror starts to reflect what the tissue has been doing quietly underneath. This is not the timeline that filler offers. Filler provides visible results in 48 hours. The adductor press provides visible results in 6 to 8 weeks. Anyone who tells you otherwise is selling a fantasy. The honest comparison is this. Filler gives you fast results that last 6 to 12 months and require repeated injections. The press gives you slow results that compound with continued practice and require no external material. Both address midface projection. One works from outside with temporary volume. The other works from inside with restored tension. Choosing between them is not my decision to make, but understanding what each one does and what each one cannot do changes the nature of the choice. Here's the protocol, and I want you to approach it the way you would approach any experiment on your own body. With curiosity, with a baseline measurement, and with the patience to wait for data before drawing conclusions. The baseline measurement is simple. Stand in front of a mirror in consistent lighting, the same bathroom, the same time of day, the same distance from the glass. Take a photograph from directly in front and one from a 3/4 angle on each side. These 4 photographs are your day 1 data. You will repeat them at day 14 and again at day 42. The comparison will either show change or it will not, and either outcome is useful information. The press itself. Sit on a firm chair, not a couch, not a bed, something with a flat seat and enough resistance that your body does not sink into it. Place your feet flat on the floor, hip width apart. Your knees should be directly above your ankles. Sit upright, not ramrod straight, not military posture, just upright enough that your pelvis is level and not tucked under. Place a firm object between your knees. A rolled towel works. A yoga block works better because it provides consistent resistance. A firm pillow is acceptable if it does not compress too easily. The object should be thick enough that your knees are about fist width apart when they press against it. Squeeze your knees together against the object. Not a maximum effort contraction. Not a grunt and strain crush. Moderate pressure. Roughly 60% of what you could produce if you were trying as hard as possible. The contraction should feel like effort, not like strain. Your breathing should remain normal. If you are holding your breath, you are pressing too hard. Hold the squeeze for 60 seconds. Count it, time it, use a clock. 60 seconds of sustained, moderate isometric contraction through the adductor group. You will feel the muscles along the inside of your thighs engage. You may feel a subtle warmth. You may feel the pelvic floor engage, a tightening sensation deep in the pelvis, as if the muscles at the bottom of your torso are responding to the signal from your legs. That pelvic floor response is the chain activating. It is the first relay station above the adductors, receiving the tension signal and passing it upward. After 60 seconds, release the squeeze slowly. Do not snap your knees apart. Let the muscles release over 3 to 4 seconds. Sit for another 10 seconds and notice what you feel. The inner thighs will feel warm and present. The pelvic floor may feel more engaged than it did before. Some people report a subtle sensation of length through the torso, as if something between the pelvis and the ribs settled into a slightly different position. That is 1 rep. That is the entire protocol for 1 session. Frequency: once in the morning, once in the evening. The morning press sets the chain for the day. The evening press reinforces it after hours of sitting. Total daily investment: 2 minutes. 2 minutes of your day to address a mechanical chain that has been slackening for decades. The 14-day mark is your first data collection point. Take the same 4 photographs in the same lighting. Compare them to day 1. You are looking for subtle changes, not dramatic transformation. A slight increase in midface projection, a marginal firming of the under eye area, a shift in how light falls across the cheekbone. These changes, if present, will be measured in fractions of a millimeter. They may be invisible in a single photograph, but visible in a side-by-side comparison. If you see no change at 14 days, continue to day 42. Connective tissue remodeling is slow. Some people respond faster than others based on baseline tissue density, age, hormonal status, and how much existing slack the chain carries. 14 days is the minimum detection window for the fastest responders. 42 days is the realistic window for the majority. If you see no change at 42 days, the exercise may not be the right intervention for your specific pattern of mid-face change. Not every face changes for the same reason. Some faces lose projection because of bone remodeling. Some lose it because of fat pad descent that is genuinely volume related. The adductor press addresses one specific cause: fascial chain slackening. And if that cause is not the primary driver of your particular change, the press will improve inner thigh tone and pelvic floor function without producing visible facial change. That is still a useful outcome. It is just not the one you were looking for. This is the honest version of the protocol, the one without guarantees, the one that treats you as a researcher investigating your own body rather than a consumer buying a promise. Notice something about the way people sit when they are nervous. The knees pull together, the adductors engage. It is an instinctive pattern, a protective posture that tightens the pelvic floor, stabilizes the core, and draws the body inward. The muscles you are pressing together in the protocol are the same muscles your body activates when it feels the need to brace, to hold, to contain itself against something unpredictable. When those muscles are chronically disengaged, when sitting has made them quiet for years, the body loses more than mid-face support. It loses a piece of its postural vocabulary. The ability to brace subtly, to stabilize from the center, to hold the pelvis steady during movement. The face changes, the gait changes, the way you rise from a chair changes. The adductors are not leg muscles that happen to connect to the face. They are core stability muscles that happen to be located in the leg. And their influence on the body above them is far larger than their anatomical neighborhood suggests. You know the difference between someone who walks into a room with their center engaged and someone who walks in with their pelvis tucked and their shoulders compensating? You have seen it. You have felt it in your own body on days when you felt solid versus days when you felt off balance. That difference, that quality of centeredness versus compensation lives in the same chain the adductor press addresses. The inner thigh tension that supports the midface also supports the posture that makes someone look present, grounded, capable. I am not making an aesthetic argument. I am making a mechanical one. The same tension that holds the cheekbone up holds the pelvis level. The same chain that gives the midface its projection gives the torso its stability. The same 60-second press that addresses facial structure addresses postural integrity. The mechanism does not care which benefit you came for. It provides both because they share the same anatomical infrastructure. The part of this that should sit with some weight is the timeline running in the other direction. Every day that the chain remains slack is a day of continued remodeling toward less tension, less support, less structural integrity. The tissue does not hold steady in the absence of demand. It actively remodels toward the state it occupies. Slack tissue becomes slacker tissue. The collagen fibers lose their directional alignment. The fibroblasts reduce their output. The elastic recoil diminishes. The process is not fast enough to feel from day to day, but it is relentless enough that the face you see at 60 is the face that your sitting habits have been sculpting since 40. Filler does not stop this process. Filler sits on top of it. The chain continues to slacken underneath the injected material, and when the material dissolves, the face reflects the additional slackening that occurred while the filler was present. Each round of filler masks a face that has moved further from its structural baseline. The distance between the filled face and the unfilled face grows with every cycle. The press does not mask anything. It does not add material. It does not provide instant projection. It restores a mechanical demand that tells the tissue, reorganize toward tension, lay down collagen along the axis of force, maintain elastic recoil, keep the chain taut. The change is slow, and it is real in the way that structural change is always real. Not because someone injected it, but because the tissue rebuilt itself in response to a signal it had stopped receiving. You do not need permission from a specialist to squeeze your knees together for 60 seconds. You do not need a referral, a prescription, a consultation, or a professional evaluation to perform an isometric contraction of your inner thigh muscles against a rolled towel. You do not need to wait for validation from someone with credentials before you begin an experiment on your own body with zero risk of harm. The press is a squeeze, a sustained, moderate, 60-second squeeze of a muscle group that belongs to you and that you can engage right now in whatever chair you are sitting in without purchasing anything or asking anyone's approval. If you found the mechanism behind this useful, if the connection between the inner thigh and the midface is something you would want someone you care about to understand, consider leaving a comment with the word you would use to describe that connection. One word. I read every comment, and the language people use to describe what they learned tells me more about what landed than any metric ever could. And if this is the kind of depth you want in your feed, subscribing is the simplest way to make sure the next one reaches you. The cheekbone does not know whether its support comes from a syringe or from a muscle group below the knee.